Welcome to today's session from Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are on chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. We'll be covering the verses 54 up to verse 63. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okam karoti vachalam pangum dangayate kirim yatkripātam ham vande Shri Gurum Dīnatarinam Paramanandamadam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Verse 54. Sthit pragyasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sthiti dhi kim prabhashet kimasit prajet kim. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one who has consciousness, whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk? Verse 55. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamano gatan atmanevatmana tushtaha sthita pragyastat uchyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure, transcendental consciousness. Verse 56. Dukheshva anudvigna manaha Sukheshu vigata spreha vitaraga bhaya krodha sthita dhir munir uchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Verse 57. Yah sarvatran abhisnehas tat prapya shubha shubham nabhinindanti nadveshati tasya prajna pratishtita. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Verse 58. Yada samharte chayam kurmo riganiva sarvashah indriyani driyarthebhasya indriyani arthebhasya tasya prajna pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise withdraws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Verse 59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Verse 60. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjun, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Verse 61. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asit matparaha vashehi yasya indriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Verse 62. Dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangaste shu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamah kamat krodho bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Verse 63. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti brahmashad buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranashyati. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So, in text 54, Arjun is asking to Lord Krishna that what are the symptoms of the person whose consciousness is one with the Supreme, or whose consciousness is in transcendence, is above the three modes of the material nature. And Arjun is asking the Lord, how does such a man behave? What are the characteristics of such a man? What kind of language he uses to communicate with his seniors or his juniors or with his peers, and how does this person walks, talks? So Arjun is very curious to know that how to tackle the all-pervading senses and how to control them. And it's the mind which is the key for controlling everything else in our consciousness, because it's very easy for everybody to be swayed by the mind and just think that themselves as their mind, and people forget that they have been given intelligence. Intelligence can be used as a big tool to navigate the mind. So this is a topic of tolerance, how to tolerate everything in life, and how to sense control, and how to be in positive engagement with everyone and even with oneself. He is happy that God is very kind to him, and he is guiding him at such a crucial point of his time amidst the battlefield. And Bhagwan replies to him in text 55 about Arjun's very important question about the specific symptoms of a person, and how actually this bewilderment happens in a person, and how one is swayed away by their senses as if they have got no control over them. But Bhagwan tells Arjun that actually it's the sense gratification that is the very important or crucial life that they have to overcome. They have to give up all kinds of desires, hankerings for all kinds of sense gratifications. If one can achieve that, then only they can control their mind, and everything starts in the mind. The desires for enjoying the various objects of senses, and the key is to control the senses themselves. Now Bhagwan is telling Arjun that a person who has controlled the senses, only he or she can think that they have gone beyond the mode, beyond the transcendence. Now, a person who is not transcendentally situated, who is not devoted to the Lord, who is not dedicating their time in their day in the devotional service, it's not possible for them, because a person has been given the senses and they have to engage them somewhere. So Arjun is told further in this verse that the natural tendency given to a human being is to serve God. But unfortunately, they end up serving their own senses for their own satisfaction. So in verse 56, Krishna continues that the person who is not disturbed by the disturbances of the mind or the threefold miseries around them, which will be always there from in anyone's life. The three miseries are, first of all, the miseries from a person's mind itself, then and body, and the second one is from the people around the person, and the third is the miseries coming from the natural, from the nature, in the form of natural disasters. So there'll be always one or another misery surrounding a person in their life. So one has to tolerate them. There is no other way to go beyond them. And a person who is able to be equipoised in all kinds of miseries, all these three miseries, for that person, happiness and distress are same. In other words, they're able to keep themselves controlled in their happiness and in their distress. They have got some kind of control over their emotions, because they understand that neither happiness nor distress is going to last forever. And a person who is free from attachment, a person who is very much attached, it's difficult for them to overcome the dualities of life. And a person who is free from fear and anger and attachment, that person, Krishna says, is a sage, is a master of their mind. So we have been given the mind, the senses, the intelligence, and a body by nature when we come to this world. And somehow Krishna has made this earth in such a way that a person has to use the faculties of the body and mind given to them to utilize them somehow in the devotional service. This is very difficult, but this has been done, and this is being done, and this has been told by the Acharyas and by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is not something which is not doable. So one should not feel dejected that this is something which can't be done. So one has to become a sthita pragya. Sthita pragya means a person with a steady mind. In the verse, Krishna says, Muni is a sage. So this is what one has to become to control their senses and to be able to become equipoised and live in a equanimity kind of situation in life all the time. Then only one is able to perform some devotional service to Lord. And once one is able to do the devotional service, then all the senses will be serving the Lord, and the senses won't be serving the person themselves. The person will be employing the senses and the mind in the service of the Lord. The process sounds very simple, but it takes a lifetime practice, sometimes many lifetimes practice, to be able to reach that pinnacle in life. In verse 57, Krishna continues that in this samsara, or the material world, persons who are not affected by the good and the bad, whichever comes in their way in their lifetime, and the persons who are neither a very flattering kind of natured person, and also they don't look down upon others or despise others. They're also said to be firmly fixed in wisdom or knowledge. This is said by Krishna to Arjun. And a person with such a consciousness is able to achieve the perfect samadhi, like Prabhupada says in the purport, or the transcendental position. In verse 58, it's further described that one who is able to withdraw their senses from the sense objects. Now this is very difficult because our eyes, our nose, our ears, our mouth, our tongue, they are very much drowned in the material consciousness around us. We are living in that kind of age which is digital age, and we are bombarded with information, and now we have technology on our fingertips. From a little kid to a mature adult, everybody has got information and technology at their fingertips. Now the key is to apply these in the service of Krishna, and to be able to withdraw from these things while designating certain hours in the day in the devotional service of Krishna. It can be in the form of hearing, reading, chanting, remembering, or using your skills which you have been endowed with for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So God has given us everything, but because we are in this material world, everything is kind of perverted way than the spiritual world. So we have to use everything nicely in the service of Krishna. Once this curiosity has dawned upon us that why we are here, what is the purpose of life, so as to say, when we are stepping into the self-realization pedestal. So for doing this, you have to follow certain rules and regulations, and certain rules and regulations are always there even in this material world. You have to go through certain discipline in life if you want to achieve something. So we should remember that in order to pursue the spiritual path of life, you have to again follow the discipline in your way of life. So a very beautiful analogy in verse 58 is given by Prabhupada of a tortoise, that a tortoise, he's able to withdraw himself whenever there is some danger around him. So we should also be able to withdraw our senses. We should have control on them, and that is only possible when we understand that how we are going to use the senses in any other alternative way. Because senses, they have to do their job. They can't remain idle. But if you know through your intelligence you are able to navigate your mind and your senses properly, then with practice it will become easier. And of course, association of the devotees and an association of the people who have already gone through this path is going to be of enormous help. And a bona fide spiritual master is a must. Like any other academic qualification, we are looking for proper spiritual teachers and professors, and we're looking for the credentials. So we should be looking for a bona fide or a genuine spiritual master to guide us into this bhakti marg as well. Now in verse 59, it's further told that even if you stop your senses, the senses won't lose the taste of sense objects. Now, the only way, like we were saying earlier, is to employ the senses is into the devotional service. So use your eyes for looking at the beautiful vigrahas of the deities in the temples. You can even see them online now. There are so many Facebook and Instagram, and there are daily darshans, even in this kind of situation we are in now at the moment in this year. So eyes can be used for looking at the beautiful vigraha forms and the shringar darshans of the lordships, and the nose can be employed for smelling the offered flowers to the deities, and your tongue can be utilized for eating the prasadam, the bhoga which was offered to Krishna, so it will remain under control. And also tongue can be used for glorifying the names of the God and for chanting purpose and for preaching purpose. And your ears, of course, ears are likened to the eyes in Kali Yuga, and ears can hear the names of Krishna and the kathas. And first of all, we have to hear our own chanting, which is difficult, it is, but with practice it will become easier. And there are so many learned scholars and sages and spiritual masters who conduct the seminars and workshops in helping us to do the chanting and how to do proper chanting and how to control our mind actually in the first place. So in this way we can employ all our senses and we can advance in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says. So once when one is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada is saying in the purport, then one person is able to lose his taste for the lower things, because a person has got the higher taste in life. In verse 60, Krishna further says to Arjun that the senses are very strong, they have got very strong hold on a person, and they can sway the mind away, and even a person who thinks that they can discriminate things, even they find it difficult. Sages like Vishwamitra in the purport, Prabhupada says that even they fell down to their senses. So we have to pray that our mind be engaged in the service of the Lord in such a way that in all the hours of the day, so that the lower taste isn't anymore important to the mind and the senses, and the senses and mind are engaged in the higher taste, which is serving the Lord. In verse 61, Arjun is further told that one has to control the mind, one has to concentrate the mind on, one has to concentrate upon the mind, and it's a kind of a war against the mind, that we have to control the senses and mind and to try to emerge as a winner in this conquest and bring them under full control. And if that is gonna happen, then that person will be known as a person of steady intelligence, or person who has got a steady wisdom. There are many examples given in the Shastras. In the Bhagavatam, there is the life of Maharaj Ambrish, who lived with total who led a life like a sthit pragya, who was a ruler, but he was able to rule his kingdom and perform the devotional service also to the highest standard as well. And this is the real aim of our life, to become devoted to the personality of Godhead and become Krishna consciousness. Now, and this is the real aim of yoga, Prabhupada says. And in the verse 62, it's said that because we are so much engrossed in our senses, our senses are so much engrossed in the objects of senses, that's why there is a strong hold of the senses on ourselves. We just follow them, and once this strong attachment is there, the strong hold is there, that is going to bring about the lust, and from the lust, from the unfulfilled desires, will develop anger. And when anger comes, a person, they cannot think unbiasedly for even themselves, let alone anybody else, and that brings the downfall of a person, because that doesn't help a person to advance in either in their material life or in their spiritual life. It is not at all conducive for any kind of progress. So artificially, one cannot repress or suppress these senses. There is a tried and tested method told in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna to Arjun, that one has to do the devotional service, to employ all the senses in the devotional service of the Lord. Then only one is going to be able to have a control of on the senses and become a sthit pragya, or a person who is equipoised. And in verse 63, Krishna continues to tell Arjun that from anger, complete delusion comes, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. A person who is full of anger, they can't think for themselves, and they lose their the memory. They can't remember properly, and when you can't remember things properly, your intelligence is also lost, and once the intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material world. So Krishna says to Arjuna again and again in all these verses that one has to employ their time of the day, their senses, their resources, whatever has been given to us when we come to this world, when we get these bodies from the Lord, and our parents, they're the means. Through them Krishna brings us into this world, and we have to employ everything, our relationships, ourselves, our resources, our intelligence, and everything into Krishna's service. So this is the only way we will be able to get some kind of liberation from all these enjoyments around us in the Kali Yuga. And of course, association, Shastra, the books, the holy books, and how fortunate we are in this particular Kali Yuga that the holy name, in the holy name itself, God is there, and enjoy the prasadam to your full enjoyment, so that your tongue gets purified, and say the holy name and glorify the holy name, especially in this month of Purushottam, when everything is given so many times to everyone, because Krishna is very, very merciful in this Purushottam month, and it is even said to be holier than the Kartik month, because this comes every 3 years. So let us all try our best to engage ourselves as much as we can in this holy month in the service of Lord. Of course, we have to do the Swadharma and the Sanatan Dharma together. One cannot go without the other. Krishna doesn't say to us that we forget everything else and just try to serve him. We won't be able to serve him if we haven't got enough resources as well to serve him. So serve him to your best quality, but don't endeavor too hard, and try to balance both together. Like they say so famously that Guru and God, they are the parallel lines on which the train of the life goes smoothly. So tomorrow we'll continue from verse 64, and I wish you all a very blessed day ahead. Hari Om Tat Sat, Hare Krishna. Thanks for joining.